many of you have met Sebastian before. We've told the story of Klarna quite a few times. Remind us how Klarna differentiates from a business like Stripe and where you fit in the payment experience.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because we all payments companies say like, yeah, we're a little bit different than everyone else. And so now I'm going to say, we're a little bit different than everyone else. But actually, no, I mean, the core of Klarna is the fact that we can instantly issue credit at the point of sales. And that can be used for multiple things. One of it is to give a great checkout experience because you can allow customers to buy without entering card numbers, which actually makes all these things we were looking totally necessary. You can just click buy. You don't need to enter card numbers even. But also very helpful for sales promotional financing, private label credit cards, all of these things that we've seen in the stores, in physical stores, in order to help uplift sales. We can help facilitate that across all of Europe and now the US as well.
So you're bearing the risk on behalf of the merchant in that second when somebody decides to pay.
So we're not just a payments company, we're an actual bank. We have a bank license and we can issue credit that sits on our balance sheet, and we're regulated and we have compliance and independence risk control and all of these great exciting things that you get to do when you're in fintech and you're a bank.
And explain in that split second how you judge whether it's a good risk to allow this person to pay to get these products.
Right, so I think that one of the interesting things is that, you know, historically the way it used to work, right, you would go into a bank and you would apply for a card, a credit card or whatever. And there's actually a lot of things going on in that situation that cannot be monitored or read. You know, maybe somebody's sweating or you're changing your data that you're filling into this questionnaire and so forth. All of that data can be monitored online and used in order to assess the risk of the transaction, such as also what are you buying, what time of the day are you buying. All of these things can be used to take a risk decision at that point of time. And so you can make it an extremely frictionless experience for most of the people. And the ones that you suspect are fraudulent or riskier, you give them a couple of more questions to finalize their purchase. And that's the way you can really give, you know, everyone in the UK might remember this 3D Secure. Visa and MasterCard tried to kill all our business a couple of years ago with like enter the 3rd, 5th and 7th character of your password. Now, why do you do that to all the customers? The only ones that needed that questions were the guys who were buying 4 iPhones at the 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. Those were the ones you should have asked that questions. But it's totally static approach to a dynamic fraud problem. And what we're doing instead is we can separate on a per session basis and give people a frictionless experience to 99% that are good, and then ask that extra question to the ones who aren't.
So anybody who can save us from verified by Visa is a hero.
Yes.
How many pieces of data can you take from me in that split second?
Well, I mean, this is always, I mean, there's privacy issues to this. You know, in different countries, there's a lot of things that are baked into this, right? But of course, there are multiple things. Screen resolution, what device are you on? You know, what time of the, I mean, there's just so much that's going on.
What does screen resolution tell you?
Well, the honest answer is bigger screens is better.
And you tap into my social network to check my
No, we
Facebook
can't do
profile
that.
is
No,
genuine?
and you're not allowed to do that actually. So there are privacy concerns that you need to be wary of. So you cannot tap into Facebook.
So you're really using an algorithm that says David is in a particular place using a particular device. He has a history of visiting these websites. There's a pattern that says he's more likely to be a genuine purchaser.
Yes.
And then
it works.
And then your contract is with the merchant.
Mm-hmm. So we take the full risk, both the fraud risk and the credit risk. So there's no chargebacks or anything like that, which merchants are usually used to. And actually, I mean, it's kind of crazy if you think about it. A lot of retailers today have like 10, 15 people that work in the fraud department and sit and manually review transactions. And it's like, it doesn't really make sense that every retailer would have that. Why wouldn't you pool that into one place and say, hey, we'll take the risk, and somebody else would, you know, instead of people doing that in every company? It just doesn't make sense to me.
And so what percentage of the transaction fee does the merchant pay Klarna?
Oh, we price like everyone else, like, you know, the guy before me on stage and like the guy after me on the stage. I mean, we have to be price competitive, so the same price as everyone else.
And you're really in the business of fighting friction.
Yes, very much so.
Explain why this matters.
Well, I mean, it matters, as everyone in here will know. Again, I mean, verified base is one example, right? But giving that single click experience just has such a massive impact on sales. It can drive, you know, conversion rate lifts. We just announced today that we are working with Wish, which is a very exciting retailer marketplace that has grown, I mean, massively the last couple of years. And we worked with them in Germany when we launched. We lifted their GMV by 40%. And that was just by making sure that they had the right alternative payment methods, that you could reduce friction. So it's not like a small thing that's kind of nice to have to be frictionless. It has massive business impact.
Wish is a business, I think the rumors are, or the reports are, that Amazon tried to buy them at a multi-billion valuation.
And that wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe 10 billion
Yeah.
valuation.
I mean, it is a very, very interesting phenomenon when they are allowing Chinese manufacturers to sell directly to European consumers, and the shipping cost is like £1. That kind of makes you start thinking about, how does it affect retail and what's going to happen when you cut out the middleman in that way.
So you're really in the business of designing a simplified payment experience.
Well, that plus that what we also allow consumers to do is pay after delivery, right? And that's another thing that consumers really appreciate, that they can kind of, with Klarna many times, get the goods and kind of touch and feel them before they pay for them. And the nice thing with that is, especially when you're buying on a kind of more geographical distance, so to speak, like from China, for example. I mean, the fact that you can get the goods and before you pay for them just makes you feel a bit more comfortable as a consumer, doesn't it?
And how long will you let me go before you ask for me to pay?
Usually about 2 weeks to 4 weeks, depending on what the merchant wants us to do.
Where do you see Klarna going? Do you see yourself becoming, as you grow, a competitor to the credit card networks?
Nah, not really, actually. We're great partners to Visa, but especially MasterCard. I think MasterCard has become very, very innovative the last couple of years, and really doing new things to push the market forward. So I love working with those guys. I think that we are more basically, over time, is becoming an alternative to your credit card. So more to the issuers than anyone else, to Barclays or whoever you get your card from.
There's a small city in Sweden called Stockholm,
right,
which is producing a disproportionate number of multi-billion-dollar companies. I mean, from Skype to Mojang,
Spotify,
and Klarna.
King.com.
What is it about Stockholm that's creating this scale of ambition?
It's even darker than here. And so it's really cold, and there's nothing else to do than work hard.
And I guess a
plus social benefit system, so you're like...
It's true, actually. When I interviewed Daniel Ek,
yeah,
I said to him, you're taking big risks. He was putting everything into Spotify at the beginning.
Yeah.
He said yes, but one of the great things about Sweden is I know if it all goes wrong, there's welfare benefits, so I won't
government's
start.
going to take care of me. Well, I think there's something to that, to be honest. I mean, we talk a lot about San Francisco, and if you look at per capita, how many unicorns have been produced in San Francisco, Stockholm is only second to San Francisco. But you got to remember, San Francisco draws people from the whole world to come and work there and try their fortune, right? In Stockholm, we draw it from the 9 million people that live in Sweden. So I think that we sometimes in Europe, we get so excited about the US and everything that's going on. But I think that we have a different model here, that actually, because we do offer free healthcare and we do offer free education, we are the best at giving everyone a chance to do something of their lives. And as a per capita, we're just better at taking that talent and foster it into music or creative arts or entrepreneurship. And I think that's something we should be really proud of. And if you look at that per capita success, Europe is very successful. It's different than the US.
And you're also a small local market, so I guess you have to think global from the start.
Yes, that definitely adds to it, of course.
Let me ask about some of the other problems you might be able to solve. We write about a lot of creative performers, a lot of poets and writers who can't make a living. Micropayment has never really worked. What can Klarna do to solve that one?
Well, we've had this project now going on with one of the largest, or the largest media house, or kind of owns a lot of newspapers in the Nordics. It's a natural place for us to start. And we realized really that this thing about friction that we talk about in payments, I mean, think about it, you go to Ryanair and you can have 35 checkout pages of boring forms that you have to enter. People will still do it and buy a ticket because they really want that airline ticket at that point of time for that price, right? So motivation is very high. But as soon as you go kind of buying t-shirts or whatever you're buying, the amount of friction has more and more impact on how much you're actually going to be able to sell, right? And the extreme example for us, that's a newspaper article. because that's where you have absolutely no patience for friction, right? So if it's going to be the slightest work you have to do in order to pay, you know, £0.50 or whatever for that article, you are going to give up and go to some other newspaper, or, you know, do Google or do something else. So we really was so excited about this problem because it's like the ultimate test of what frictionless payments can do. And we have now worked with them for a year. We've been able to increase conversion rate for buying actual reading content with 900% in the conversion rate. That's still not going to save the newspaper, but it is an extremely good step in the right direction. And we're now going to work this year to kind of see what the next level is and how we can improve that even further. And we find that really interesting because we think that there is a huge opportunity to allow, you know, journalists and creative, you know, everyone is created to really monetize what they're doing more efficiently than they have.
So effectively, by making the payments process pain-free, you
Yep.
can measure in percentage numbers the improvement on returns.
And you know what we learned from this also, which is the secret sauce, is that the full solution is not only to make it super smooth to buy something, but also all our users, everyone on our websites, they're so used to the fact that payments is friction that you have to come up with a way to tell people that this is going to be frictionless. So we actually separate it from true friction and perception of friction. And you got to solve for both if you're really going to have that. Because people just expect that every buy button means 55 other steps afterwards, so I'm not going to click it anyway. And that's the hard thing to crack. How do you get people to trust the buy button again?
And it's always measurable? I mean, when you're working with Wish.com, can you quantify how effective your involvement is?
Sure. So Wish went live with us in the UK, which was very exciting to us because I mean, we've been working with them in Germany and the Nordics. But in this, Wish are kind of fun because they're like this Google ex-CTO, you know, ex-tech guys. And they're like, I've never seen any retailer be that tough on A/B testing. They will just like, boom, run an A/B test, and they have these like dashboards of 55 stuff. And like, you're green, you're red on that one, you're green on that one, you know, yellow that one. It's really impressive when you see how quick they are. But anyway, so they ran a A/B test with us versus their own checkout. And we beat them by 15%. They increased their GMV in the UK by 15%. So now they're full live with us in the UK on full volume. So that's, you know, really, really exciting. But it took some hard work to get there.
So let's talk about the UK. Many of the audience are from the UK. I mean, how many commercial partners do you have here? Mm-hmm. And what sort of sectors are showing the greatest demand?
So we're, I think, live with about 250 merchants or something like that. But it is specifically within retail and like fashion and physical goods that we are strong. I mean, we're not that much in digital goods usually, even though we're doing this test with the newspaper. But it's just everyone. I think a lot of like people we work with tend to relate to this payoff delivery concept. It's so funny because when we were supposed to launch in the UK, we went out and asked all consumers, would you like to pay on invoice? 1% in the UK said yes. And we were like, okay, that's it. Forget it. It's never going to work here. Whatever. As we now launched it, over 50% of UK consumers use payoff delivery function. Wow. So it's really interesting to see that, you know, once you position it and present it in an attractive way to people and they realize what it means to them, it's actually something they really appreciate and it drives sales, right? So we're fairly early here still, but it's a lot of fun. We have a great number of retailers we want to go live with. But I mean, not everyone wants to do our full checkout thing. Some people want to work with us and just like, hey, I have an omni-channel problem and I need like a private label credit card. What is my private label credit card going to look like in the future? How is that going to look? You know, and I want something that works both in store and in the online and so forth. And how can I make everyone who comes down to my physical store, how can I stop having them as anonymous customers as opposed to online that is, you know, fully identified? How can I make more of the anonymous offline customers identified, right? And those are kind of problems that we're solving with them. So we're kind of, you know, depending a little bit on what the merchants is interested in, we'll adopt.
I imagine you're also collecting a lot of really quite useful real-time data about market demand. How are you using this data?
So we're very careful with that. I mean, me personally, and I don't want to like, you know, but I am a PayPal customer and I get a little bit annoyed when I get an email like every second day with another offer. So we want to kind of stay away from that approach. What we do, however, is that like we do help with personalization, and that's actually quite interesting. So we've been able to say that, look, we're not going to help merchants like sell to other merchants because then they will not be happy with us. But what we can do is once a customer comes to a website and has been shopping at one of the other 45,000 merchants that we have about 35 million users today, we can help personalize that experience a little bit. So we can tell the merchant, this person is male or female, things that are not privacy infringing, but just helping. And it's kind of funny because that male or female thing is huge. It can drive so much improvements in conversion rate and optimization for the merchant. So we can do like slight things to use that data. Again, we're not like sending traffic to somebody, but we're helping them personalize the experience a little bit. And as long as we're not like too close into what is privacy infringing, then we find that that's okay.
So if you've got 200 merchants in the UK working...
250.
Sorry,
Yep.
250.
Big difference.
Working in the UK with Klarna.
Yeah.
That's maybe 1 million not yet working with Klarna. Now, I don't want a business pitch,
Yeah.
but what, in general, are those other merchants missing? What do they need to understand about the way payments is changing?
The ones, the 1 million? Well, I do think that, I think the big challenge, so we, as I said, we have basically two legs that we stand on. One is more kind of, credit at point of sales and these, private label credit cards and so forth. But then we have the checkout product. The checkout product is a little bit different because basically it's a little bit, all payments companies today, they give you kind of a toolbox and say, here, look, fix this, do your own checkout, and then you have to think about fraud, and you have to set up this, and you have to install that, and so on. The checkout is a full-blown outsourcing. So it's basically like usually people would have rack space a couple of years ago, and then Amazon Web Services came along, and everyone was like, that's a full, like you don't need any IT ops guys anymore. You just like use Amazon Web Services. The checkout is the same. So a little bit of our challenge when we meet retailers today can be like, hey, I'm the payments guy at this retailer. And like the checkout, well, maybe we don't need a payments guy anymore. That's not the easiest sell pitch always when you're in that room. Because basically, if you use the checkout, you have no need for fraud engineers, checkout engineers, sometimes not even payments people. So it is replacing. That's our biggest challenge.
Well, thank you, Sebastian, for joining us from Stockholm. You are taking on the world. How many territories now?
We are now live in all of Northern Europe, so Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, Germany, Austria, soon Switzerland, UK, Netherlands, and the US.
And you've raised $1 gazillion at a gazillion
No,
times
that's actually
10 valuation.
So I'd like to point out, we're actually one of few fintech companies that's actually profitable. And been profitable for 10 years. Yeah, I know it's unfashionable. I'm sorry. I'm a very boring guy. I don't believe in Bitcoin. I didn't believe in Second Life. I didn't buy property in that either, and I'm not going to buy Bitcoin. So sorry about that.
But I'd like to claim that Wired recognized your potential early on, and we've been writing about you for
very true
5 or 6 years.
Well, I hope we can live up to that expectation.
Thank you, and Sebastian from Klarna.
Thank you very much.